O my friends, forgive me, that I live and you are gone. There's a grief that can't be spoken, and there's a pain that goes on and on. Phantom faces at the window, phantom shadows on the floor, empty chairs at empty tables, where my friends will meet no more. Words from the scene in the musical Les Mis when, after the failed attempt at revolution, Marius mourns the loss of his friends. He sits alone in the trashed cafe, surveying the empty chairs at empty tables, where he and his friends had spent so much time together. And he sings this song in one of the most poignant scenes of the musical. His words perhaps capture something of how many of us feel at Christmas, and perhaps especially so at this Christmas. It might just be the one chair that is empty, maybe with laughter all around, but there's an emptiness in the room that cannot be forgotten. Or it might be several empty chairs normally filled by all our extended family, but this year will be empty due to travel restrictions or health concerns. Or indeed we might be like Marius, alone, perhaps alone for the very first time this Christmas. And there will be a deep sadness. The friends and family we're unable to see and spend time with. Empty chairs at empty tables. I wonder whether Mary and Joseph would have felt some of that pain too. It's a well-known part of the Christmas story that there was no room for them in the inn. In response to an empire-wide census, Joseph had gone back to his hometown of Bethlehem to be registered, bringing with him his pregnant fiancée. Did he not have family there in his hometown who he could stay with? Was it just because the inn was full that the door was shut in the face of, after all, a heavily pregnant woman? Or was it precisely because of Mary's pregnancy before her marriage, that she was left shunned by society and family? Until the arrival of the shepherds, it seems that Mary and Joseph were all alone in that cattle shed. We think of the nativity scene often, don't we, as a cute scene with a sweet couple nursing their newborn, surrounded by a host of cuddly animals. But it's really a scene of abject poverty, not just financial, but social, relational poverty. Mary and Joseph all alone, in far from comfortable surroundings, at this most vulnerable time, giving birth to a child. No one to help, no one to support. But it's in the very poverty of this scene that there is hope for us all. For this is not just a story of a poor family shunned by society. The Christmas story is the story of God coming into our world in the person of Jesus, coming not to be born in some royal palace, shielded as far as possible from all the mess and brokenness of this world, but coming into it at its bleakest, at its most broken. And of course it didn't end there. At the other end of his life, Jesus was mocked, spat at, tortured and killed in one of the most horrid ways possible. His life was a life of poverty in all its dimensions. But the Christian hope is that God left behind all the riches of heaven and entered into the very depths of our poverty, financial, social, spiritual, precisely in order to lift us up out of the brokenness of this world and restore us to fullness of life in His presence. It's a future hope, the promise that one day every wrong will be put right, every tear wiped from every eye. But there's also a hope for us now in the present. God is here with us now by His Spirit. And the Christmas story reminds us that God is there with us in the very midst of our grief and pain. The Christmas story reminds us that we do not have a God who remains indifferent and far off, but we have a God who is there. It has been said that God does not always give us an answer to the difficulties we face. But what He does give us is Himself. Many of us will have empty chairs around our tables this Christmas. But may we know, and it's my prayer that you may know, not simply that Jesus is there as the unseen guest at every meal, as the old saying puts it, but more than that, that He sees too the empty chairs, and He is there with you, sharing in mourning their emptiness. I'm going to finish with a poem by Mark Greene that speaks of Jesus' presence with us. His presence with us there in the joys, there in the sorrows of life, ever loving and ever giving. There, in the glimmer of a smile on a careworn face, in the fountain fresh hope of a first embrace. There, when sun sparkles on the dancing foam and laughter splashes like the hearts of home. There, in the pain and confusion and tears, the muffled screams and nameless fears. There, in the scuttling panic of a wind-whipped leaf, in the brimming ache of endless grief. There, in the emptiness of alone, in the grey barren of chilled stone. There, always there, the eye brighter than the gleaming crown, the heart softer than the purple gown, the servant on the throne, the king who would be known for no reason except to give in every season that we might live. Come, light of life, lighten the darkness in our lives with your mighty word of love. Lighten our hearts with the joy of your promised coming. Lighten our world with the hope that faith in you brings. Amen.